Welcome to the Social Chase. I'd like to introduce Audra Talbot, who is a special ed advocate and the president of the Bristol SEPTA.
Thank you, Chase.
You're welcome. Welcome to the Social Chase.
Thank you.
So tell us about your journey through autism.
Well, it started with both of my children. I didn't know a lot about autism before that, but once I started to learn more about it, I started to get more involved as a parent and then as a leader for our town SEPTA, and then as a special education advocate.
Oh, how did you get involved in the autism community?
Well, it started with my son being diagnosed with autism when he was 2, which was about 10 years ago. And then when my daughter turned 2 years old, she was very shortly after she turned 2 diagnosed with autism. So it was like a 1-2 kind of thing that happened in our family. And I needed to find a network of families that understood how I felt, because I felt on the outskirts of things as a parent of these 2 children with disabilities. So I got involved in the autism community by joining my local SEPTA.
Oh.
What is SEPTA?
Thanks for asking, Allie. SEPTA is Special Education Parent Teacher Organization. And so they're family-led organizations throughout the state of Connecticut. And mine is from Bristol. It's called Greater Bristol SEPTA. But there's many towns that have SEPTAs, and it's supposed to be a collaboration between the Board of Education of that town and the families of that town to find bridges to build.
How can students and graduates be involved in SEPTAs throughout the state?
Well, it was an idea I had when I was Bristol SEPTA's president for only a year. And I wanted to involve our student population and our recent graduate population because it felt as though all the adults were making decisions for the children. And it was actually my daughter that brought that up to me when she was in kindergarten as a 5-year-old and said that she wanted to come to a SEPTA meeting and be the student representative. And at first I kind of laughed it off like, oh, haha, she just wants to be involved. But then I really thought about it, and she wants to voice her concerns to the people that can make the decisions. So in the future, I look forward to stepping into a larger role as the chair for the Connecticut SEPTA Alliance. And as the chair, I'd like to incorporate children and students and recent graduates into the SEPTA populations within the state of Connecticut.
Oh, that's nice.
What is a special education advocate?
Well, a special education advocate is a person that helps families navigate the maze of special education. And it truly is a maze, especially to the newer parents that are entering the system from birth to 3 into the public school system. It's very overwhelming, and it's very emotional because it's about their child. So my role as an advocate is to help navigate the legal part of it. I'm a non-attorney advocate, so I can't act as though I'm an attorney, but I do have training as an advocate and also internship as when I trained to become an advocate. And also my personal experience as an advocate for my own children.
How can we change the perception of people living with autism in our society?
Well, I think one of the greatest ways is this show. I really think that this show is one of the stepping stones of changing the perception of everyone on the autism spectrum. And I think that it's probably one of the first things that I've seen in a long time that's truly making waves. I see it on Facebook a lot. But I also think another way to change the perception is how we approach people in our everyday lives and our language for in the disability community. The first person language is something that I really think is very important too.
What advice could you share with families of newly diagnosed children?
Well, I think one of the first things to share with a family of a newly diagnosed child is that it's okay to stop and breathe. It's okay to take time for yourself because you have to. And then probably the next thing is learn as much as you can. And you're the subject matter expert on your child. It's not the speech pathologist, and it's not some principal, and it's not even the doctor. You know your child the best, and you know what's best in your gut for them, and you should go with that. And you should do the go to the trainings and the in-services that are free within our community, such as Septos, which are created to empower parents. And I truly believe that knowledge is power. And the more you learn, the more confident you get in society and helping your child. So that's one of the few steps you can take. And I think another really important thing is both of my children are 9 and 12. So I'm kind of in the middle. And I'm by no means a truly seasoned parent, but I'm not a new parent either. But you learn something new about your child every day. And you shouldn't forget that they are children. So you should get on the floor and play with them. And you should go outside and play with them, because it's really, it's your time and it's their time too.
That's great advice to tell them.
Thanks.
Can you please share some of the challenges you face with having children with autism?
Well, Allie, there are many, many challenges. For example, when my son was first diagnosed, we were in Germany at the time. It was very hard to get services in Germany. We're an Army family, so we had to drive 2 hours just to get the diagnosis at an Air Force base. And there are no services for him there in the surrounding area where we lived. So we asked for a compassionate reassignment, which is something that you can do if you have a child with a disability. So we came back to our hometown of Bristol. And one of the main challenges was I didn't know what I was walking into. And I think that was the hard thing, because I didn't know what to expect. And I had a 3-month-old little baby girl on one side, and I had a 2-year-old boy over here. And we actually had to stay in a hotel and have birth to 3 services while we tried to find a house when we first moved back. That's one of the many challenges. And then very shortly afterwards, their father deployed to Afghanistan for 6 months so we could pay for a special education attorney in order to ask for an out-of-district placement for him to secure appropriate services for him. So that was a challenge, because by default I was a single parent for about 9 months with 2 children. And then my daughter was diagnosed while he was deployed. So it just kind of all happened at once. One of the things that I did for myself was to go to therapy to manage my stress. Because as you can imagine, I had a tremendous amount of stress being a mom of 2 children and trying to do it on my own. Another one of the challenges was when my daughter was diagnosed. As she matured and became older, we realized that her autism was still autism, like my son's type of autism, but it was just such a spectrum in our house. She had a tremendous amount of behavioral issues. My son had speech and language issues. He also has apraxia. So it was a list of things that I needed to learn as a parent as I went along. And again, I think that falls back onto the things that you should do for yourself, and that's part of the education of it. Having a child or children with autism or any disability puts a strain on a tremendous amount of things in your life. It puts a strain on your finances. It puts a strain on a marriage or any relationship you have. It puts a strain on your ability to work and make money, because you have to constantly be with your children, especially with my daughter Grace when I get phone calls from the school, which is very often. But it's just, I think the way that you persevere is that you kind of just find that person inside of you, and you almost evolve into this different person where you can just take it and you can handle it, and you take a deep breath in the morning and you just keep moving forward. And I think that's how I found my way. I just kept moving forward. Thank you for asking. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Are there any tips you'd like to share to the audience about autism?
I would. I think that when I spoke before, it's about knowing your child. And I think that you have to trust your instinct as a parent, as a mother, and you should really tap into your resources. If you can get help from your family, you should do it, and you shouldn't be so proud about it. It was a hard part for me to ask for help. So I learned to ask for help. And I think the other part of it too is enjoying the fact that autism, I look at it as their superpower in a way, because my son can do things that I wouldn't even imagine that I can do. He's a master at Legos and puzzles, and just, it's amazing. And my daughter is a writer, and she illustrates, and it's just I think the tip for parents would be to let them be themselves. Let them if they flap their arms, that's their way of doing things. If they want to dance in the rain, that's mine love to do that. They love to go outside in the summer, of course, and go outside and do those kinds of things. Not in the winter, maybe in the snowshoes, but I think that the moral of it is to let your children be themselves, and then you'll see this lightness that they have, and you'll learn to appreciate it.
That's nice.
Thanks, Chase.
You're welcome.
Well, can you please share about how people can find their SEPTA in the community?
Absolutely. So I find the best way to capture the population of families within our community is Facebook. And everybody's on Facebook. There's great groups on Facebook of parents, very parent-friendly groups. A good way, you could look up my Facebook page. It's Greater Bristol Special Education PTO. There's also, it's called the Connecticut SEPTO, SEPTO Alliance, and that's also a Facebook page. But even if you contact me directly on Facebook or my email address, I am one of the two people. My partner is Kevin Daly, and Kevin Daly and I go around the state of Connecticut where there's interest in towns and regional school districts and create SEPTOs. So we have 2 that we just created within the past 6 months, but we have 1 on deck right now. So hopefully more communities are interested, and we'll be able to create more empowerment for families and school personnel to come to our meetings.
Thank you for sharing what's happening in the local level. So can you tell us what's happening in the state level?
Of course, Jace. Thanks for asking. So as far as the state level, I am part of something called the State Advisory Council on Special Education. It's a federally mandated council by the IDEA law, and that's the special education law. So within that law, it says that in each state, there has to be a State Advisory Council on Special Education. So I was nominated to that about 3 years ago, and so I sit on that council, and it's comprised of the Bureau of Special Education, the chief of that bureau, and parents like myself. I'm a representative as a parent on that council, and other stakeholders such as DCF, DDS, and other disability-based organizations within the state of Connecticut. And one of the things that we work on the council is to identify target problems within our state. So because of the field that we have when we have our meetings, which are quarterly, we decide what are the hot topics. Currently, we're working on 3 hot topics. So those topics are mental health needs of our student population, restraint and seclusion, and also we're working on teacher education for special education students, and that would be general education teachers to know about special education students who are included in their classrooms. So what we do as a council is we break up in our groups and we talk about those hot topics. We create topic briefs on those, and then we put them into one, and we submit that to the legislature at the end of the year.
Thank you for that information. I think it will be very useful for our parents.
I think so too. And if they're interested, they can access our meetings, which a couple of them are televised throughout the year. When we sit at the Capitol at the Legislative Office Building, our meetings are televised. So you can find that on the Connecticut Bureau of Special Education. If you specifically look under the Special Education Services, you can find the meetings that are televised. And if they're not televised, you can find the transcripts of the meeting notes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great information, and I encourage you parents to come out to those meetings.